Hello everyone, how are we all doing? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're feeling all the spring vibes, all the good spring vibes, because the weather is getting better and spring is springing and I'm just feeling really good about it. The leaves are growing on the trees and I don't know, I just hope you're having a great start to your week. And if you're not, hopefully this will give you a little bit of something to think about, and hopefully this will brighten up your day. Even if you just want to have a listen to me chat about things, then yeah, I hope this makes your day better, or even better if your day's already going good, or if your week's already going good. Can't believe that we are in like the middle of spring. Is it the middle of the spring? Maybe. I don't know when spring ends. But anyway, how many times can I talk about spring? I don't know. Today, I actually wanted to talk to you guys about something that my friend Tia mentioned to me. She explained to me, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And then she was like, you should do a podcast episode on it. So here we are. We're doing a podcast episode on it. And you're probably very intrigued if you're listening to this episode, because you're like, what is this title? Like, let me find out more about what Charlotte's talking about here. So my friend Tia mentioned to me about this idea. Well, we're going to call it the cake theory. I don't know whether it's called the cake theory, but I'm going to call it the cake theory just to make it easier. And the whole idea around the cake theory is that when you are introducing someone into your life, a relationship, a man, a girl, whatever you like to date, how when you bring someone into your life, that person should always be an addition rather than being your life. I'm a very firm believer, a strong believer actually, that when you're in a relationship, when you're dating someone, they are not going to be your whole life. And this is something that I have learned over the years. And I am in a position right now with my life where I love my life. I really enjoy how I get to do my life. Obviously, it's lovely, and I would love to have someone in my life with me and joining me and doing things. But I would never want someone to be in my life where they are clingy and they want to hang out all the time, because I don't have time for that. I have my own life to live. And therefore, that person will always just be an addition, which for me is something that I want. I want someone who's going to be an addition to my life. I don't want someone who is just going to be like part of my life to the point where like you're taking up my things that I like to do, the things that I do with my days, the way I live my life. Now it sounds like a bit silly, because surely like if you're in a relationship, you want them to take up your time. And yes, you do. But there is a way in which it's right and healthy, and there's a way in which it kind of can affect you more than you realize. Just think about how many people you know who the minute they get into a relationship, they lose all their friends. Or the minute they get into a relationship, they, stop doing certain things they love. Or all of their friends become their boyfriend's friends. There's so many people. And if you are one of those people, it's absolutely fine to do that. I'm not saying that if you're listening to this and you're someone who has lost all your friends from your relationship or whatever, that it's wrong, because everyone is different and everyone can live their life how they want to, and you can do whatever you want to. It's up to you. But for me, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to lose my life for the sake of having someone in my life. Do you know what I mean? So the cake theory is designed around this thought, right? So this is going to take a bit of explanation, and I apologize if this doesn't make sense, but I'm going to try my best to make it make sense. So the cake theory comes under this idea that you are a cake. So think about it. If you're a cake, how would you look as a cake? How would you be as a cake? What sort of cake would you be, first of all? Second of all, in order to make a cake, you have to add all the ingredients, right? And in order to be the best cake you can be, you have to have the right ingredients. And sometimes we miss out certain ingredients that we forget about, right? And that can lead us to our cake to being maybe flat on one side, or maybe being a bit thinner, or maybe being a bit more fluffy. All of these things can make our cake a certain way. And depending on the time of your life and where you're at and whatnot, your cake might differ throughout the years, throughout the days. Your cake might have risen a bit more one day, and then it might be flatter the other day. But in order to make your cake the best cake it can be, it involves having the right ingredients, and it involves working on those inner things, right? So to be the best cake you can be, you have to do the inner work. And I've spoken about this before, about how you need to do self-work and self-love and all of that. That is what will help keep your cake in the perfect, nice cake size that you want it to be, right? You want to be the best cake you can be. You want to be the best person you can be. You want to love yourself and enjoy yourself and be the best person you can be. And it's the same with your cake. So your cake wants to be like that. So once you have all the ingredients and you have everything and you're ready and you're in a good position to be like, right, my cake is whole. I have made my cake whole myself. And I think that's where the whole idea of being someone who just has their own life. Your cake is whole. Your cake is complete, right? Then when you have your cake, so you are the cake. It's a metaphor. Hopefully you're running with this. Hopefully you understand. So you're a cake, essentially. And your cake is divided up of lots of different slices. They can be, some of them will be bigger, some of them will be smaller, but every slice is different. So your slices might be your career, because I think a career is something that's very important within a person's life. That might be a real big slice of your cake, but that's a slice of cake. You might then have working out, the workouts you like to do. Maybe you go to the gym 5 days a week. Maybe you go to Pilates. Maybe you go to a running club, whatever. Like, that's going to take up a slice of your cake. Then you're also going to have your home life, your kind of routine is also going to be a bit of your cake. The hobbies that you like to do, the time, the way you like to spend your time, like the plans you make. All of these things are going to take up a slice of your cake, right? And then when it comes to bringing a relationship in, a person into your life, especially in a loving, romantic kind of way, that person should only ever and always be the icing on your already existing cake. When you let someone take over your cake, you lose a lot of you become half of you, right? So say, for instance, when you think about your relationship, how much of your cake is taken up by your relationship or the person you're dating or whatever. So I've spoken to people about this, or when I was talking to my friend Tia, and she was saying how she felt that at one point a relationship that she was in was taking up a lot of her cake. It was taking up half of her cake. So she only had half to work with. And I think that when you let someone take over half of your cake, come into your cake, they've taken half your cake, you're only left with such a small amount. And then those slices either become smaller, those slices become, they disappear because you can't fit them into your own half of your cake. Maybe your relationship's taking up 3/4 of your cake and you've got a quarter to work with, and your job might be really important to you, so your job might be taking up most of that quarter that you've got, and then you've got slithers of little things that you can squeeze in when you can squeeze them in. I am a firm believer, as I said before, that a relationship should always be an addition. It shouldn't be taking over your life, and it shouldn't be changing you as a person and the things you like to do. Naturally, when you're in a relationship, you are going to change, you are going to differ, you are going to have things that are going to make you feel like a certain way. You're going to maybe drop things and do things together and whatnot. That is normal, right? But your cake, you as a person, shouldn't have to change and let things in and let them take over your cake in order to have a happy, healthy relationship with someone. The person you're with should always be the icing. You should be okay without the icing, right? So if your cake is whole and okay, you actually don't need any icing. Your cake is fine. Your cake looks beautiful. Your cake is stunning. Your cake is perfect the way it is. You don't need any icing because you've got the perfect cake. But if your cake maybe is a bit skew with, you've let them in and it's battered you a bit. You've let a guy in and it's ruined your cake a bit, and your cake's maybe a bit lopsided. Sometimes you need a bit of icing to cover it up. Maybe it's burnt on the top, and you're because the guy's come in and messed with your cake, and then you've got to put icing over the top to kind of cover it up. But your cake should be perfectly fine without the icing. So the icing is the boy. The boy is on top of your cake. If you take the icing off, the cake's still perfect. But if you put the icing on, it just adds something special. Icing on top of the cake. Just add something a little bit special. But you don't need it. But it's nice to have on top of the cake. So that's how you should see, well, how I see a relationship anyway, is that the icing on the cake is just the addition. It's just the addition. Your relationship should be an addition to your life. It should add something to your life, obviously, but it shouldn't be your whole life. You don't want to be sat living a life where you think, oh, well, I used to do that, but I can't do it anymore because I don't have time, or thinking, oh, I've lost all of my friends because my boyfriend takes up half of my cake. I just will never be someone who could be in a relationship that would lose your friends. My friends mean the world to me, and to ever be in a position where my cake is taken up by a boy, no thank you. Like, my cake is so important. I spent a lot of my life building my cake and making my cake become the best cake it can be. So then to let someone in and destroy my cake, no siree, not happening. You're not destroying your cake. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this and explain this to you guys was because I think sometimes when we're in relationships or we've had situationships or whatever, and they've come down, crashing down, and we think, oh God, like, it's like that took up so much of my time. I've got so much time. What do I do? It's because like so much of that time and so much of that person was taking up so much of your life. And naturally, as you are in a relationship, they're going to take up time in your life. That's normal. But I think so many of us we want it, so we bring it in and we take it, but without realizing what it's doing. And often I do think that it comes down to where you're at in life. If you are so solid and like, I can do life without you, but you're ready for it, the icing on your cake will just come when it's ready. Like, it will just come and it will drape nicely over your cake and you'll be like, wow. But if you're not ready for it, sometimes the icing can come and it can be the wrong icing for your cake. And it can be the wrong addition to you. And maybe the icing actually doesn't make your cake better. It makes your cake worse. Or maybe the icing is seeping through the cake and just destroying you. Do you know what I mean? So it should always be the icing, I think. And like, this is just my personal opinion, but when I was talking to my friend Tia about it, I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. Because when you think about it, you can actually think about how your relationship is, or maybe the guy you're dating. How much of your cake is that guy taking up? Is he taking up any of your cake? Because if he's not, you're okay. But if he's taking up a lot of your cake, maybe think about why he's taking up your cake. What is it that he's taking up? What has he made you stop doing? But without, maybe he might not have done anything, but you might have let him come into your cake. You might have let him have half your cake without necessarily realizing you've let him have half your cake. Because this is the thing. A lot of the time when we're in relationships and stuff, we will let someone in, but we kind of sometimes can be a bit hazy with the situation. Be a bit hazy with how much we're willing to let in. We might just, oh, he's so nice, and we let him in, and before you know it, you have stopped going to your workout classes, or you have stopped doing your hobby. And your hobby might have been something like, I don't know, going to painting classes. That's so random, but you know, here we are. Painting classes is your hobby, and you met this guy and he's kind of maybe made you feel a bit like, oh, painting's a bit weird, and so you've got rid of your painting class, and that slice of your cake has become him, because you've let him decide whether painting class is for you or not. And this is the thing, right? Each thing. So it's like so let's use all the slices as an example. If working out is one of your slices, you work out 5 days a week, and he's come in and you've stopped working out 5 days a week. You don't work out anymore. That slice is now him. And every slice that gets taken away because of that boy coming into your life, that slice then becomes them, right? Because you've taken it away, therefore you've replaced it. You've only taken it away because of him. So if, you know, one of your slices is friends, and your friends are now, you don't talk to any of them anymore, you've lost all your friends because you've got a relationship, that friend slice is now gonna be him. And I think that one thing that probably won't ever go is your career, unless you all of a sudden drop your job to just be with your boyfriend, which is something I would never do because I'm not that girl. But say you're going to have a good big slice for your career, and then all of the other slices that you may have will get smaller, will disappear and become him. You'll have a boyfriend slice. And we don't want a boyfriend slice. We want a whole cake of just us. The boyfriend can't be a slice. Can't have a slice of my cake. You're not allowed. I know you want a bit of this cake, but you can only be the icing on top of my cake. You can't be a slice of my cake. Do you know what I mean? But this whole thing really got me thinking about relationships and my past situationships or whatever. And I'm going to go back to like my ex. It's the best example that I can give because like I was with him for 3 years. So that's like the best example for me that I can give and relate to the situation. So when I was with my ex, I quite literally let him take up most of my cake. And most of it was because when I left uni, I was like at this point in my life, I really, really wanted a relationship. Like I really wanted it. I was like, I want a boyfriend. And I literally was just like, that's all I wanted. I didn't really care much for my job at the time. I did. I was just plodding along, but my priority was getting a boyfriend. I can't even lie to you. Did I lose all my friends? No, but it did take up a really good chunk of my life. I would say my relationship very much became at least half of my cake because especially second year we were together, when I absolutely hated my job so much and I wanted to leave before I moved to Amsterdam. If you didn't know, lived in Amsterdam. That's a story for another day. But for the second year we were together, there was a really big chunk of it where every single weekend I spent with him. I barely saw my friends. I didn't lose my friends. It was quite tough then. I think we all lived in different places. We'd all just finished. It was like a couple of years after uni. Like we were still trying to figure out our own lives. So it was hard to get a plan in place altogether. But yeah, he took up a lot of my cake because every single weekend I'd spend with him. I would spend time on my Instagram, which was a thing that was like really important to me. And I would spend time doing that. Like I would go home maybe on the Sunday morning, mid-afternoon to go and get myself ready for the week and sort all the stuff out that I wanted to post and whatnot. I would spend time doing that. That was important to me. That was a big chunk of my cake. My job was a big slice, but I had no choice about that one. And he took up most of my cake, but I think the reason why he took up so much of my cake was because I was so lost in life. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was going. I obviously wanted to do Instagram, social media as my job, but it wasn't very easy to get into so quickly. Back then, that was in 2018, roughly 2017, 2018. And I was so lost because I left uni in 2016 and I was like, oh God, I don't know what job I want to do. So I just worked in retail for a bit. And then I realized, okay, well, I didn't want to do styling, but that's what I thought I wanted to do. And then and then I went into social media and I found it really tough to doing. Well, no, it wasn't tough. I just didn't enjoy it. And so I was so lost with my life that I think the only thing that was really keeping me going, like properly, was the fact I had this relationship. And don't get me wrong, we had a good relationship. We really did. When we moved to Amsterdam together, we lived there for a year, over 2019 over into 2020. So half of it was spent in COVID lockdown, which was not a vibe. But when we were in Amsterdam, he pretty much took up he still took up a good chunk of my cake because he was one of the only people I knew there. And my life did revolve around what he was doing. And now there's no fault in this because I think at the time it was what I needed. It was right. Everything at the time was fine. I didn't really have a ton of worries. I wasn't paying, well, when we were in Amsterdam, we were paying rent, but like I wasn't paying rent. I wasn't paying all these things to begin with. So there was less to stress about, less to worry. I had a lot less to worry about back then. Whereas now I have a lot more to worry about. I have to look after myself. I'm getting older. I need to, keep my workout routine up. I need to look after myself. I need to pay for my bills. I've got to pay for my flat. I live on my own. Like, there's so many things, right? So I have a lot more to worry about now. But when I look back at it as a general picture, obviously the relationship ended for a reason. We were never meant to be together, and that's okay. I have so many amazing memories, and I'm glad I went to Amsterdam with him and all these things. It was perfect and right at the time, but we were never really meant to be together, I don't think. As we understood what we wanted to do each ourselves, our cakes were not compatible. His icing wasn't, it was sliding off. It wasn't really staying, right? So he was never going to be the icing on my cake forever, and that's okay. It needed to be like that. But when I look back on it, the way in which he took up so much of my cake really left me not really living my life. And I wasn't in the headspace really to live my life. I didn't have a lot of money, so I could only do so much. And now I wouldn't even dare let someone take up so much time of my cake, because obviously it's different now. And it's weird because when I met him, I met him on Tinder, back in the day when Tinder was somewhat okay. Would not use Tinder now. But back then, I think he was the only person I went on a date with. I spoke to other guys. I was in Cambridge, which is where I'm from. It was a very slim amount of people, and a lot of people like you would know from school and whatnot. So anyway, I went on the date, and that was that, and we became a relationship. But now it's so different because, as an adult, I don't have to ask anyone if I can bring a boy around. I don't have to meet parents straight away. You don't have to do all those things. So it's like you can hang out with them in your evenings. Your evenings are spent less about watching those TV programs you need to watch, or catching up on things, or like spending time with your sister, or spend time with your family. And it's more about living your own life, and you can do your evenings how you want to do your evenings. So naturally, I think as you become older and you're in a relationship, whatever, you do have time when you spend more time doing that. But it's just, obviously with any relationship, you're going to spend time with them. That's like a key part to being in a relationship. But it's just making sure that they aren't taking over every inch of your life, and you're still, going hang out with your friends. You're still going on trips. You're still living your life. This is the thing, right? For me, I don't need to be with someone 24/7. I don't need to see someone every single weekend. I would love to. I love that. Do I need it? No. And this is why I think I have got into a really good headspace, because I've got to this point where I actually feel okay being alone. And I would love someone, don't get me wrong. I would really, really love to have someone in my life. That's something that's really important to me, and I would love to have. But I don't need it. I don't need someone to be there, because I can do everything I want to do myself. But a relationship isn't about, how much time you can spend with them and whatnot. It's about when you spend the time with them, you have those great moments and those great times. And that for me is important. Obviously, when you first date someone, it's really hard to get into that headspace, because you want to see them all the time because you just started dating them. But when you take time apart, it makes it more exciting when you get to see each other again. And that, when I first dated my ex, we see each other every 2 weeks. So I actually did live a life where he wasn't my priority. I'd see him every 2 weeks on a weekend, because we had jobs, and in order to get to each other, we'd have to drive or whatnot. And I couldn't drive to begin with. So it was really hard. He'd have to pick me up and all these things. But then he very quickly became someone who took over most of my cake, and that was because I let him take over my cake, not because he chose to take over my cake. But now, I do, because I can do my life how I want to. I want to see someone more often. I want to see them maybe once or twice a week. But in my head, that's almost do I need to? No, not really. But if you have all the plans, if you have loads of plans with your friends and whatnot, you just got to fit them into your life. And this is the thing, right? I think that we should all remember is that if you're You have to live your life how you've already planned it. When you go onto your calendar, you've already got plans in place. You've already got things in place. You can't live your life being like, okay, I'm going to keep that free in case he wants to hang out with me. I'm going to keep that day free in case he wants to hang out with me. And that's something I sometimes slip into, this idea that like, oh, I'll keep it free because he might want to hang out with me. No, everything will work out how it's supposed to. If you're meant to hang out with him, you'll hang out with him. Your calendars will just align, and you'll be able to find a date that works for both of you. And if, you know, for whatever reason you're with someone and you're both very, very busy, you'll start to realize, okay, well, we need to forward plan. We need to plan in a date. Okay, you're free then. Okay, I can do that date. We'll do that then. And then it will all work out how it's supposed to. But when you start, like, even just not doing things in a week because you might want to hang out with him or you might want to see him and he might be free, then you're literally just like giving him the slice of your cake that's your calendar, control of your calendar. You're letting him take control of your calendar without taking control of your calendar. And it's not because you've said, like, here, take control of my calendar. It's the fact that you are letting yourself feel as though he might be free, and you're letting yourself be like, okay, well, I want to save a bit of time for him. The minute you do that, you're not living your life for you. You're thinking about, oh, well, maybe I can hang out with him. No, if you're busy, you're busy. You gotta just get up and move. So it's almost like the same with your cake. If you're letting your calendar be controlled by certain days controlled in your calendar by whether he might be free, because he might not be, then, you know, those days come and you're like, oh, I could have gone and done that and I didn't because I was hoping I'd see him. But if he doesn't say to you, I want to see you, then, well, fine, we won't see each other. And that's okay. Whatever. But some people, you know, it's so easy to get into that headspace of being like, oh, well, he did say he wasn't doing anything on the weekend, so maybe he'll ask me if he's free. Yeah, basically, live your life how you want to live it. Make your plans, do everything. The right person that you're with, the right icing for your cake, will come onto your cake, will drape over your cake so perfectly that your calendars will align, everything will align. You'll be an icing. And like, the thing is, right, if we flip it, he is also a cake. He is his own cake too. And you are going to be the icing on his cake. But if you're trying to sniggle your way into his cake, that's going to bother him. Some guys and girls, I must say, are the types of people who just want to be a cake as whole. So they are half a cake and you're half a cake and you're one cake together. Some people are like that. And the icing just doesn't really exist because you're each other's cake. And that's okay. Like, I don't want anyone to think that if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, well, my boyfriend takes up quite a bit of my cake, like, is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. This is just my view on how I see relationships. And I think that's just because I'm someone who is I'm a strong, independent woman. I can't lie. I'm an independent gal. I always have been. It's come from something from quite a young age. I've always been like this. I'm a very hardworking person. I don't need someone with me because I've learned to be on my own. That's through like anxiety and my social anxiety from school. I've learned to be alone. And I like being alone. I very much like being alone. But I would love to have someone with me. I also like that. But at the same time, you know, I don't need someone to make me feel complete. I feel complete myself. But that has taken a lot of work. I'm 28 and I've got to this point. That has taken majority of my 20s to get to where I feel like, okay, yeah, actually, I do feel good in myself. I don't need someone to complete me. But that has taken me a long time. And I've been single now for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in September, which seems like a really long time, actually. But when you think about the life process we've been through in the last 3 years, it's probably not that long. But yeah, so for me, I just want someone to be my icing. But it's okay if you want someone to take a part of your cake. That is down to you. That's why you are the cake and you get the choice over your own cake. Do you know what I mean? So that's why no one's cake is different. No one's cake is different. No one's cake is the same. Everyone's cake is different, and your cake can be however you want your cake to be. And that's the thing you have to remember, that you have control over your cake. because it's you. You are the cake. So if you let someone take over your cake, then you have to figure out whether you want them to take over your cake or not. Because if you want them to, then that's okay. If you want that, that is okay. I just am someone who doesn't want someone to take over my cake. I've built a life for myself and I want to enjoy it. But I just want the icing over the top of the cake to just not... I don't need someone to change me as a person. Do you know what I mean? Like I said before, the icing is okay whether you have it or not. You are the cake and you need to complete yourself. But if you want someone to complete you and that's how you are, then that's okay. But for me, the icing on the cake is what I want. But I actually don't need the icing on the cake. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that was just a thought. I don't know. I wanted to talk about it because I feel like sometimes we get in this headspace that, you know, a relationship should really be a big part of your life, but it actually should just be an addition. The person should be an addition. You don't need to see them all the time, but obviously you can want to see them all the time, but you don't need to see them all the time. And a relationship can work out however it's supposed to, and it will always work out how it's supposed to. And if you're looking for someone to be the icing on the cake, then you need to understand that you also have to be their icing on the cake. You can't take up a bit of their cake. So it works both ways, and you have to understand that. So if you want someone to be your icing, you have to be okay being someone else's icing. So yeah. But remember, you've still got time to find your icing on your cake. You still have time to find the icing on your cake. And the icing, when you find the right icing for your cake, oh, it's going to be chef's kiss. And you're going to be so glad that the icing came when it came. And you'll be so glad that icing was the icing that you went for in the end. And it wasn't some like weird, like crappy, watery icing. It was like a good... What would be your icing? Like if you chose right now, in my head when I'm visualizing my cake is perfectly round. I'm gone for like a Victoria sponge kind of cake. That's what I'm visioning in my brain. I don't know if I would be a Victoria sponge, but that's what I'm going with. And then the icing on the cake is like, there's like really thick, like kind of like icing that's like, you know, just like going off the sides, like dribbling down the sides, but it's really thick and it's pink and sparkly. God knows why. That's what I'm thinking about. Pink and sparkly. I just feel like good vibes. That's the vision that I've got in my head when I'm thinking about this cake. If I was going to pick some icing, it'd be pink and sparkly. I wouldn't want something boring. I want something fun. That's why when I meet the person of my dreams, my future husband, maybe I've already met him, who knows, it's got to be fun, it's got to be good vibes, it's got to add the fun on top of my cake, even though I'm already fun. Maybe my cake would actually be not plain, it would be like a sponge with like sprinkles in it or something that's really more fun. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe it would have, I think it would have some sort of colour in it. I don't think my cake would be a plain Victoria sponge, actually. I think that's a bit boring. I think that's a bit boring for me. I think I need a bit more of a pizzazz in the cake. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Please do send me a message on my Instagram, which is I am Charlotte Olivia, or Still Got Time Podcast Instagram, if you found this like a good episode and you'd like to chat about it, and if you found it useful or whatever. I'd love to know, because this is something I really wanted to talk about, but it also sounds a bit weird. So yeah, and also you can email me also, which is stillgottimepodcast@outlook.com, or .co.uk. It's .com. I'm pretty sure it's .com. Oh my god, why do I always forget this? Anyway, gonna love you and leave you, but thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all in next week's episode. Bye.